bottom of the ninth. We're at Jacobs Field, now Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio. You can hear the fans from the flats. The manager calls you in to close this game out, the closer. What music are you running out of that bullpen to save the day?
Oh,
All right, Jennifer, are you ready?
ready.
All right, Ty. Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Well, thank you, Kevin. Well, timeout with leaders today. We have the Jennifer Lake, the CEO of Goodwill of the Finger Lakes. And Jennifer, thanks for taking a timeout with Kevin and I. We try to learn from the best of the best in Rochester. We're going to start out by asking you, I'm a foodie. So what's your favorite restaurant to eat at in Rochester? Let's throw them a plug right now.
So it's a newer restaurant to me, but it's been around for forever. It's actually the French Quarter, right downtown. It is kind of our own little slice of New Orleans, and it is amazing. So definitely French Quarter. It's right off of Plymouth, downtown.
Right. Have you ever been to New Orleans?
You know, I haven't, but I'm a fan of Creole food. And honestly, I haven't had anything bad there. And a friend introduced me to it last month, and I've already been back twice because it was just so good.
Safe to say you liked it then. Safe to say.
Yeah, you know, I mean, beignets, you can't go wrong. And
Tyler knows a little something about New Orleans down there. Since we're on the food subject, and I'm hungry this morning, where would you go for coffee?
So fun fact, I quit coffee in college because it was a serious habit. I know it's crazy. Because it was literally like, I don't even know how many cups I had in a day. And then when you add in diet soda, caffeine. So now I am a steady tea drinker. And there is actually a great place locally, Happy Earth Tea in the South Wedge. A former colleague of mine and her husband, he is from India. He has the best blend. So usually you can catch me with an awesome chai, Darjeeling. You know, I also am a fan of English breakfast, mostly because most restaurants only have that. So you kind of learn to adapt, but at least they offer that versus, you know, the Lipton, like black tea that
Yes.
you know, is like industrial. I don't even know where those leaves are from. But yeah, so I love the smell of coffee. I just like it just doesn't taste good to me anymore. It's crazy to go from really liking something to like, hating it now.
Yes, definitely. You're still getting some caffeine at least. Some caffeine propelled you to obviously winning that 40 under 40 award. What year did you win it? And do you remember where you were when you got the call that you had won that prestigious award here in Rochester?
You know, I wish I knew my bio better because I want to say it was like 4 years ago-ish. We'll go with that. So maybe 2016, 2017. It was the best thing. I was actually walking back to my office from a meeting, and there was this huge bouquet of flowers on my desk. And, you know, my husband loves me, but he's not a flower ordering guy. Like, flowers are great. Like, I appreciate them, but you know, they die. Like, so I was like, okay, it's not for my husband. I'm like, who would send me this amazing arrangement? And it actually was from 40 under 40. And that's kind of how I found out that I had been selected. And it just was such a nice way to do it. And then, you know, there was this lovely letter. But I always thought it was just such a class act, like a way of congratulating the nominees, like in the moment, because today we just take for granted, like you just would get an email or like, you know, congratulations, you get a letter in the mail. So it was just a really nice feeling. And my whole team had kind of been waiting for me to get back to the office. Because normally that delivery would go to the front desk and I would go pick it up. But I think the front desk was like, oh my gosh, you know, so they brought it to my office and then the whole team was kind of, after I noticed the flowers, they were waiting to see my reaction. So it was just so rewarding to find out in the moment with some members of my team right there at the same time.
Yeah, Jennifer, I was just thinking, I've been waiting to feel this feeling someday at some age. What age was it, or era or year was it when you said to yourself, you're going to be a CEO someday?
So, all right, we're 2021 now. I became CEO in 2020. What a great time to leave.
Perfect.
Honestly, I say it like tongue in cheek because it really was. I figure if you can make it through that, like I keep saying, is it downhill from here? I don't know. But I honestly didn't see it for myself. It was probably 2017 when I was having a conversation with our then CEO about some continued leadership development. I am a lifelong learner, love to learn. One of those people who thinks you can never learn enough. So Goodwill has this program. It's called the Executive Development Program. And in the materials, it's literally like, we prepare people to be CEOs. So I was like, not likely, I doubt it, highly doubt it. Like, how do you do that? Like, that's impossible. So I was talking to her about this program because I really wanted to do it. It was an 18-month. There were 3 different 1 week in residence down in DC. It was attached to George Washington University, this great program that I wanted to do. And so I was talking to her about it. And in that conversation, I realized, she kind of saw that for me. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a supporter, yeah, I can make tough decisions. Yeah, I can get things done. But so I actually wrote some of my, there was an interview process and you had to write an essay. And my first question was about how I don't really believe that this program grows and builds CEOs. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a nice thing to say to get people into the program. And I could not have been more wrong, because that is exactly what it does in terms of the self-work, getting you to really realize kind of where your blind spots are. We always talk about, people know where their weaknesses are, but to really identify where you have a blind spot, where you really need to kind of accept it, embrace it, love it, and get people around you who don't have that same blind spot. So it does the tough self-work. It also, rounds out, any gaps you have in your own, business knowledge. So it really was like an MBA-like program. And just the confidence of some of the situations they put you in, they give you like this media training where this woman who was like a former reporter is like in your face, like, and again, it's in a classroom, but man, like the sweating, not that we want to talk about it, but like, I was like, wow, okay, like that was fun. But you really, when you finish it, you're so supported, and you have this group of, other Goodwill CEOs who are mentoring you. It really helps you appreciate and love who you are as yourself. And as a result, you are very open to the fact that, yeah, okay, I can lead a $50 million organization. And, I thought it would be great to be able to replace our long tenured, 34 years as CEO. I did tell the board, like, I do not intend to be here 34 years. So if that is like one of your checkmark requirements, like, because I just feel like you need fresh blood in organizations. And while I feel like I have a lot to give, and I think our organization does so much to support the community, and we can do even more. For me, it's about, I need to feel like I'm adding value and I'm growing and developing people. And at some point, people will be ready, and it'll be time for me to find whatever comes next. So long answer, Tyler.
That's exciting.
I still feel like, I am a CEO, and I feel like there's still a lot I can learn. And I feel like if I ever get to that point where I'm like, yeah, like I'm rocking this, I got this, I'm a CEO, it's probably time to move on and find that next thing.
Well, you probably had a lot of experience. I know you worked out in Los Angeles for quite some time. Do you want to talk about that experience and what it was like to kind of work in a totally different industry that's obviously very much for profit, rather than where you are today, which is more on the nonprofit space?
I try to tell people that if you have that opportunity in your life to take a risk on yourself, pick up and move and go to a big city where, you maybe only know one or two people, but it is that whole, I want to make it on my own kind of moment. And, I moved out there really because I thought I was going to go to law school. And, I was a scholarship kid, growing up. And so the thought of, having to go into so much debt, and then having to work at a firm to pay off said debt. My sister just told me, she's like, do you know that UCLA is like a tier 1 law school, and in-state tuition, because she lived in California, is super cheap. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? So I moved out there thinking, okay, I'd get my residency. I'd work for a year, and had a connection into a temp agency at Warner Brothers. And it really was kind of night and day, because at first you're getting over that backlot feeling of like, okay, I literally work now where they're making all this movie and TV magic. And it really is a different pace. So for all you East Coasters, when you move to the West Coast, like, you are a desired skill set, because there just is this like East Coast pace. And I'm guessing it's probably not a good thing for all of our, I like to call it work-life integration, but definitely it's a coveted thing. And it's funny, a lot of East Coasters tend to be friends with other transplants from the East Coast. But it was a great opportunity. And I had literally moved out with all my stuff. My mom was like, well, hey, since your sister's out there, why don't we just rent a moving truck and take everything? I'm like, wow, okay. Like, don't let the door hit me on the way out. Like, take all your stuff and go.
They wanted that empty nest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She was all about it. So I drove out there with her after a couple of days, and had an interview at the temp agency. And it was literally the day after we got in. So we got in late, went for this interview, and it was for an HR coordinator job. And loved the on-premise director. She was my matron of honor, like, years later. Like,
oh
so we're still lifelong friends to this day. But she said to me, she's like, yeah, we can get you a temp job in a couple of weeks. We'll have it be a good one in like business and legal affairs, somewhere, or my HR coordinator is not really working out, and you could start tomorrow. And, again, that like scholarship kid growing up, I was like, I'll start tomorrow. Like, my stuff's not unpacked. Like, it's always about, in those early days, like when you're on your own, like you want to feed yourself, you want to pay your rent. And I am so glad that I took that risk, because in my head, I was like, I really need a couple days to like unpack and like get settled. This is a major move. And, it worked out, because I ended up coming back to that same leader who kind of took a risk on me after I'd been in business legal affairs for a couple of years, because I realized that it wasn't the law that I liked. It was that every single job I had had up until that point helped me realize that I wanted a career helping people to grow and develop, realize what they're passionate about. Because I found myself on this floor, and I'm like, I like the law. Like, I want to help people. But all of these attorneys had already done their 120 work hours. They're now in this cushy studio job. And that's how they would talk about it. Like, now I'm in a cushy studio job, but they're still missing their kids' plays, because a deal has to get done. A movie's got to be made, a DVD is about to get released. And so I kind of started thinking about it, and I'm like, I really like, and I don't know where I was in college, but I had no clue this thing called human resources even existed. And because I had kind of some business experience, it really allowed me to be a really great business partner. And through my whole career, have really been able to leverage my previous experience, working for Clinique and being in sales and being that account coordinator, to no matter what you do and where you work, it's all about how you get results with other people. and it all starts with yourself. So that first day, getting off the moving truck and then going over. So I called the individual and I said, hey, I really want to work in HR. There's no actual HR on my resume, but I've hired people, I trained people, you've got this open contract recruiter job, basically Warner Brothers outsource its entry level and mid-level like IT to a partner. So I was like, how about you take a risk on me? And if it doesn't work in 30 days, I'll quit. Like no harm, no foul, but like give me a chance. And at the time, people thought I was crazy because I was literally leaving Warner Brothers to work for a contract company to hopefully then come back. Because, when you have thousands of people interested in every job you post, you have the luxury of not having to necessarily promote from within. Or taking a risk on people. So a lot of people would leave and come back. And I was so glad I did, because that first phone call asking for what I wanted instead of what I thought I had to settle for was the first of many phone calls that helped me propel my career forward in ways that, I didn't think is possible, which is why it's so funny. I never saw CEO for myself. And I think sometimes we just limit our own dreams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do you think we do that? Seeing that you have your master's in kind of organizational design and development, why do you think that we do that in most people?
I think even in myself, a little bit is just self-protection. In our society, there's this concept of perfection and even more fallacy, this concept of control. And we like to lull ourselves into thinking that, if we just step a little bit outside our comfort zone, like that's enough for us. But you have to just put yourself out there and realize that at the end of the day, people feel the same way as you, and they're so in their own head about what they're not doing well and what they're, what they should be doing better of, that maybe in the moment you'll have that awkward, like, well, no, I'm not going to give you that opportunity. But we move on so quickly that one moment that we obsess about for weeks, just because we're humans and that's what we do, everybody else moved on 4 years ago. And, I used to work, one of our former leaders had told me this story once, and it's about these two rabbis were walking along a river, and they came across someone who was stranded, and so the one rabbi picked her up and was carrying her along and took her to where she needed to go. And the bottom line is, you put her down like months ago, but like you're still carrying that weight around with you. Mm-hmm. And when you really think about it that way, like the other person like didn't take any of the weight, like they just walked along, were supportive and got to go along their way. But because you saw the opportunity to help, now suddenly, that weight is on you. Mm-hmm. And I probably butchered the story. And if that mentor hears is gonna be like, yeah, that's not the story. But the bottom line is, you put her down 2 miles ago, but you're still carrying the weight with you. Mm-hmm. When are you going to let it go? Mm-hmm. And I think there's freedom in realizing that the only thing you can control truly in life is your own reactions to situations that come up. And anything other than that, it's luck or a calculated guess. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you're pulling strings, because life has a way of throwing things at you. And I think this last year has taught all of us that we have to know innately that we're good enough, that we're going to make the best decision we can. And it really all starts with just the values work and knowing yourself. What is your true north? How do you make decisions, and how do you get that alignment? And if you don't have it, what's that next small step you can take that's going to put you on a path of getting to it?
Awesome, Jennifer. Well, yeah, I think you touched on it takes another person to kind of bring you the good out in you. And that guy down there named Kevin was the guy for me, just very instrumental in getting me out of my comfort zone, seeing some good in me, you know, and after I just caught fire after that. And do you have anyone specific? I mean, you may have already touched on it, but was there someone specific in your life that just said, Jennifer, you got that it factor?
You know, for me, it was my stepdad. So my parents split when I was in fourth grade, and I was really shy. And it's funny because still to this day, when I tell people I'm an introvert, they don't believe me because I extrovert so well. And it's really because of my stepdad, who was really a dad to me. He was a really successful, you know, accountant. And, you know, one day he just said to me, because I have an older sister who like walks on water, you know, was beautiful, like talented, good grades, like, you know, the first grandchild in our family, like, you know, so when you have someone 4 years older than you like that, you tend to take a back seat a little bit because, you know, there's those insecurities. And when we moved to upstate New York, so that's why I don't sound like a New Yorker. I was born in Ohio and kind of grew up there. So I have that Midwest, like no accent effect. So we moved to upstate New York after we had been there for probably 18 months or so. He just said to me one day, he's like, you know, how long are you going to be willing to just be in the shadows and like staying silent? Because you're super smart, you know, you're just as talented, but you've decided that you're not good enough and that, you know, you don't want the world to see you, you know, you kind of just want to observe. And, you know, as long as you've made that decision for yourself, that's all it will ever be. And, you know, is that enough for you? And, you know, I still go back to that. He ended up passing away my senior year in high school, and from brain cancer. And I go back to that often because throughout your life, there are always going to be those moments where you have to push yourself to that next level. And if you have those voices in your life that are encouraging you, you need to believe them and you need to get out of your own way. And if you don't, you need to have that belief in yourself, because, you know, I've lately been doing a lot of work into motivational intelligence. And it's this really powerful concept about, if you really think about it, everything in your life that you're good at today, you once sucked at it. You know, we were all babies, like who could not even walk around. And now like you get up every day and you walk around and it's like no big deal. You know, none of us could talk. Like, so when you think about it, anything that is truly important to you in life, if you work at it long enough, you can get good at it. You might not be like a gold medalist, but like you'll be able to actually do it. But we all have this loop in our head. And those dominant thoughts are what we latch onto. And it's this brilliant work that's starting to come out in the workplace too, about we live into that. Like our subconscious picks up on dominant thoughts. And if my dominant thought is, I'm going to be a horrible CEO, all my mind does while I'm working is look for all those moments that reinforce the fact that I'm horrible. Mm-hmm. So if we can reframe to like, man, like this pandemic has been terrible and I'm making the best decisions I can. I'm involving my team. I'm looking for these symbols. So changing the thought to, you know, I can do this. It's just so powerful. And that's kind of what I hope other people start to realize is just, there's nothing special necessarily about me. I do believe I'm special. I have good confidence, but at the end of the day, like, there is no secret sauce. Mm-hmm. Like it literally is being open and vulnerable enough to know where you need support, where you can shine, and to want more. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. I loved your point about being a lifelong learner, and it seems like a common thread between all the interviews that we've done up until this point. The other common thread is really what it took to get to where you are. And you mentioned you started with Clinique selling. I know Bonton, one of my mom's favorite stores, probably one of the only stores left in Elmira down there. But really, I guess these early steps in your development, you got your first degree in political science, so you thought you were going more in that law direction. But now you've kind of had that crooked mile journey as to where you are today. What do you think what would you tell your younger self, Jennifer, where you are today as the CEO of Goodwill of the Finger Lakes? What would you tell that younger self before you started maybe that first semester at St. John Fisher?
You know, honestly, Kevin, I don't think I would have a conversation with myself. And why I say that is one of my biggest learning opportunities came at Fisher when I was a junior. We were going to be going to this conference on the West Coast, ironically, Los Angeles, before I even thought about moving out there. And we were taking a group, and the advisor left the college. But because I had worked in the Res Life office, like they gave me the opportunity to still go, but to like really be like the chaperone, even though I was just a student like everybody else. And it was for a Res Hall Association. And we had, our only requirement was that you had to make this poster for like a poster session about like the types of programs your Res Hall does. So we had like months to do this. And of course, like nobody did it. It's literally the week before we're supposed to leave. So again, like I coordinate a meeting to like get people together to work on this stupid poster. Because at the end of the day, it was a stupid poster. So don't lose sight of that. And nobody showed up. So, all right, it's now like 2 days before we're leaving. Schedule another meeting. Still, nobody shows up. So, of course, what do you think I did?
Did it yourself.
Exactly. Yep. Young leader, rookie mistake. And the day before, I'm just happened to be during my office hours, you know, I'm sitting there, people show up, they're like, hey, we're here to work on the poster. And I'm like, oh, well, a little bit too late. Like it's already done, you know, and they're like, oh, well, you did it yourself. Like, well, yeah. Cause you know, we have to show up. Like we couldn't just show up with nothing. So for the first 2 days of this conference, nobody talked to me, including my fiance, who was also going, because the group was so upset that it was something that represented all of us. And while they took ownership, they blew off the 2 meetings. No one ever thought that I would just do it myself. And for me, it took me a while to really be grateful for that opportunity, to understand that what I did was worse, because I rationalized it all day, every day, that like they blew off the meetings, you know, my reputation. But in that moment, I made it about my reputation. And it would have been so much better to fail together in a group or show up with some, you know, half-assed poster because at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Like that was the thing. But I had created in my mind this situation where like the fate of the college representation was on my shoulders. And it wasn't. It literally, I was never going to see those people again at the conference. You know, like it or not, I loved St. John Fisher, but it's a small liberal arts school in upstate New York. We were at the University of Southern California with, you know, colleges and huge universities. And it was more important to me to not look bad than to care about what my friends, you know, what that would do to them. So why I say I wouldn't go back is, while there were times when I felt like I didn't know what I was supposed to do next, or I was making mistakes, you know, like I said, oh, I should have gone to law school. I shouldn't have, you know, taken this job. And I really do believe that every one of those opportunities prepared me for the seat I'm in today. And honestly, I would be too worried that I would mess that up somewhere along the way. You know, Butterfly Effect, great movie. And I think that I love those missteps just as much as the amazing things, you know, so that 40 under 40, you know, getting that phone call earlier this year that a billionaire philanthropist was giving us a $10 million gift. Like it just, those bad moments are just as important as the good.
Yeah,
awesome, Jennifer. Oh my, well, we are really excited to have you. You mentioned a little while back, getting outside yourself. That's something I struggle with, have always struggled with, and I have some practices nowadays that I do daily. And you're talking about language when you were talking in that avenue. What practices do you do daily on a day-to-day basis to get outside, Jennifer Lake?
So I think being a mom, having a daughter definitely reminds you quite often how inept you are. So I think that one of the things I try to remember is just being supportive of myself. And it took me a lot of years to do that in the moments where you really blow it, because you're going to blow it, whether you're a parent, whether you're an uncle, an aunt, there are going to be moments with kids where you're like, oh man, I really wish I could do that.
I'm getting motivated, Ty. What do you think? I'm getting really motivated here. I'm a month out, Jennifer. You're getting me really excited.
I thought you were pretty close, but I feel like there need to be PSAs, like the It Gets Better series, because, I am the first to admit that, like, literally the second night we were home with Maddie, we called the baby line, because like all she wanted to do was nurse. She was clearly not hungry. She would not take a pacifier. I'm like in tears. I remember they're like, there's a baby. I'm like, Matt, call the baby number. Like, I am not doing this. I'm not, so in those moments, it's first and foremost, the best practice is to reach out for your lifelines, your supports, because it's super powerful. We all, hear, like, when you accept help, like, it's a sign you're weak. And that message, like, really just needs to be blown up, because it's such a sign of strength. And that's why, first and foremost, I use my resources, and then I tell other people about how I use my resources, because I don't want people thinking that I'm this superhuman. I am literally just like you. I am like the same. I have the same worries, the same fears. I have the same hopes and dreams. I'm just comfortable saying that I don't need to do this alone, and it's stupid to think that you have to do it alone. So for me, that's the biggest part of it, and it took me a while to learn that, and still a little bit to this day. I'll see my husband, asking like, hey, can I do that to help you? And there's some resistance there in, that darn like nurture that you grow up with those messages. So the first, second step is just kind of confronting them. Like, this is silly. Like, I don't have to be the one that does all the cooking and cleaning because I'm the mom, like this is crazy. I'm for gender equality. Like but there's these hard wiring. So, and then the third thing is just to take time for yourself. And for me, that'll look and feel differently. So it's making sure that even though I'm exhausted, I still connect with friends. Because, it's when you're most tired and you don't want to go out, that it's when you need to connect with your network. And then I do a lot of affirmations, and really kind of, the subconscious thinks it's like outside of you. So, it's just saying like, you're enough, and your best is good enough. And when you frame those affirmations in the you, your subconscious is most likely to pick up on them. So I know a lot of people are like, I'm good enough. You want to just shift that to like, you're good enough. It's
okay.
Like a weird, like the science of the brain is kind of crazy how we work as humans.
Yeah.
And then I need some activity in my life. So whether that's yoga, I love body flow at the Y, you'll see me at that class, or just getting out and walking, spending some time in nature. I would say it's the one thing I miss about being in upstate. versus living in other parts of the country is, I'm not as motivated to go outside and walk around when it's 20 below.
Yeah, you mean that 20 below zero doesn't get you motivated to step outside for a nice brisk walk, Jennifer?
Yeah, a nice brisk. Nope. No, I swear when you move somewhere warm, so growing up in Ohio, moving here, when I lived in California, I was only there for about 5 years. I swear my blood thins because now if it is, less than 70 degrees, I need a jacket. And I feel so much like my grandma. It's not even funny. Maddie's like, Mom, it's so warm. She's in like shorts and a tank top and I'm in like jeans and like a cardigan. But I own it. I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I like to be warm.
I'll change out in California. All right. Well, if you didn't need to work for a paycheck, Jennifer, what would you do?
I would still be involved in not-for-profit organizations. The need is so great in the community that, I think when you look at the work Melinda Gates has been doing, and honestly, from my perspective, if each and every one of us just gave 10 hours a month to a cause, any cause, the world would be a really better place. And I think that's what, I think I heard a statistic yesterday that during COVID last year was the biggest year for volunteerism. And something like 54% of people said it was the first time they had ever volunteered. And again, I don't know what study was on the radio, but just thinking about that, I was like, wow, I've been volunteering for years. Like, it's just something our family did. My grandpa was very involved in the community. And the fact to me that people go through life never having volunteered their time for anything, it's just really sad to me. Because those experiences, they're so impactful for you as a person, let alone all the good you're doing in the community by helping. So, for me, I probably would be just as busy working just as many hours for causes that I care about. And honestly, it's like my day job now. I really believe that when you do something you love, and you really feel valued and you're consistently challenged, it's not work. It's just your bliss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of people are still searching to find their passion and what their desire is and where they think that they can move the needle for themselves as a family, but also on a professional level too. It's a lot of things that people struggle with. Seeing that CEOs right now we're kind of in this new normal, right? I've had some conversations with executive leaders and they can't wait to get back to normal. And I keep telling them, like, we're really not going back. But we've seen like this more of an emphasis now, maybe more than ever, where it's back on the people, right? The people that are making our organizations, the people that are out in our communities supporting some of the needs and initiatives that you guys are doing there in the Goodwill of the Finger Lakes. What do you think, since you are kind of came up the ranks through HR and saw a more humanistic, but maybe also the business side that you alluded to as well earlier with some of those previous roles, what do you think is like, how did that help you become a better leader as a CEO, understanding the individual and kind of working up your own ranks throughout the organization itself?
I really think it's the work I did on myself that made a difference. And what I mean by that is you can't lead people until you can lead yourself. And I know that's like the most like simplistic thing. And it's entirely true. Because if you can't make fun of yourself, people won't trust you. And you have to know yourself to be able to make fun of yourself. And that idea of being an open book and having kind of radical candor, most people can't do that with their leaders. It takes incredible trust. And that's what we need now more than ever. And yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. There is no going back to this idea of a normal. This is just, I really believe, this VUCA world that we're living in, there's just going to be something else coming. And I think leaders that continue to lead, continue to look for opportunities where they could help, where they could be of service. Those are the organizations that didn't have a year where they kind of lost pace. Maybe the pace looked different. They had different initiatives they were working to, but when you look at who really was successful over this past year, I look at our own organization. We tripled, if not quadrupled, the volume of calls we were able to handle. We redeployed people. We, in our programs, our ABVI services for people who are blind, we had the best engagement in our children and family programs we ever had. So yeah, there's reasons for that. Parents needed a break. I get it. And if we hadn't have switched, if we hadn't have mobilized, if we hadn't have pivoted to that new concept, if we hadn't redeployed team members over to the crisis and 211 line, we would have never accomplished anything. It would have been very easy to kind of go into that protection mode of like, some colleagues, I appreciate that they felt they needed to lay off their workforce. One of my first things with the board was going in and talking about how I believe strongly we needed to pay everyone, even if that meant we were going to run a $5 million deficit. But our organization has reserves. We've had individuals giving to us for over 100 years who put us in a position where we could do that in a way that wouldn't hurt the organization. And not everyone had that luxury. But that ability to do what's right in the moment, even when it's not convenient, even when there's going to be a negative side, if it's for the right reasons and it's supporting your team and your employees, it's the right thing to do. And I think that some people might say I'm naive to think that you can always do that. I disagree. I think that the leaders' actions this past year have demonstrated that you can do both, that you can potentially have a business risk decision that ends up in the long run paying off in, quadruple what it would be. And I truly believe that. So this idea of what's going to make a leader going forward is the ability to be introspective, continue to grow and develop themselves, and then to cultivate that ability, that learning agility in others. And I think leading with a motivational lens is going to be even more important. And for me, I hope I'm not the first people leader to move into a CEO role. It is somewhat of a unicorn. I really believe 10 years from now, it'll be a dime a dozen. Yeah. Because people leaders understand the business. The good ones do. They know your business better than you probably do. And they see your blind spots, and their advantage is they know how to work with individuals to get better results. And I think every organization that's not focused on talent management, leadership development, growing their own, and understanding there's always going to be people who want to stay in the job they have today, and that's okay. But you really are going to have to cultivate that. And at the same time, our employees expect more from us. Personally, as leaders, the whole ethics in the ethics award is now switching to this idea of virtuous. So it's not enough to just be an ethical leader anymore. People want to work for someone who's a virtuous leader. And I think the shift of, what got you here is definitely not going to get you there. And you just need to accept that and keep working on yourself. But just, again, it all starts with you.
Powerful. How understand the learning and development strategies, right? And you work for a very unique organization. You hinted at it with the helpline, but also the work that everybody. Obviously, I donate a lot of clothes to Goodwill, and I'm on the committee over there, so I know a lot about the work that you guys do in the community. But what's interesting about your organization, Jennifer, is that you have manufacturing, you have service related, you have a lot of different needs in an organization where most businesses are really only focused on one specific thing. How does that help you as to how to identify, I guess, talent coming in the doors of the organization and where they would be best suited? Going back to your master's degree, I'm sure that helps. But how is that unique and different from your past experiences with other businesses? Because ABVI and Goodwill of the Finger Lakes are very unique in that regard.
We like to say we are incredibly complex, and there's some great benefits to that complexity because, there's lots of opportunities for people to kind of move really sideways within the organization, which we appreciate. It's also hard because our administrative talent gets tapped and pulled in a couple different directions because at the end of the day, we're not for profit. So, we are held to standards that normal industries are not in terms of keeping our administration costs low. Dan Pallotta has a great book and a TED Talk, Uncharitable, highly recommend it. But it basically says the rules that we play with are different. So our teams have to be that much better at doing more with less. And I think it helps us be innovative and creative. It also makes us want to pull out our hair sometimes. But the focus on the individual and career growth and development is universal in all the different areas. But it provides opportunities for people to be able to flex into different areas in a way that might be a little safer because, you can reach out and ask for someone to mentor you in a different division. And it's still within the same company, but it doesn't have that same line of sight perspective. It also is really helpful because outside of a global pandemic, usually if one business is challenged, the others are not. So, for us, it's that peace of mind. We do so much good in the community, whether it's our Good Neighbor program, partnering with, other not-for-profits to give away the stuff that comes into us. We can only do that because we do generate, 75% of our own revenue and are not so dependent on, grants. Don't get me wrong, philanthropy and grants, we need that extra 20 to 25% each year. But to know that we control so much of our own mission is just tremendous. And we're able to make those connections back. And no matter where you are within the organization, you understand how your individual contributions are contributing to this amount of service in the community. And we make those connections and we talk to the groups about the investments we're able to make as a result of what they're doing. And it's just tremendous for people to be able to love their job, know their job is doing more in the community than just making someone rich. At the same time, where they have the opportunity, if they want to grow and develop. And like in our retail stores now, we have a production incentive. We have some employees who are making like $17.50 an hour working for Goodwill, like in a back room, processing the donations that come in, because, we pay, I think we start at like $13.25 an hour, and literally they're making an extra $3 to $4 an hour based on their own productivity. And I think it's that creativity, that innovation, and the ability for business leaders to work across. So we don't really have a lot of silos anymore. We have meetings where people bring their business challenges, and that outside perspective and that action learning modality, I think allows us to be more creative and problem solve in ways we wouldn't have otherwise.
Sounds like the one thing, it sounds like your employees feel valued, but also it's just understanding that it is a team, and kind of bringing forth. And I think you're showing, like you said earlier, nobody wants to ask for help because it's a sign of weakness. But if you're encouraging that in an environment where the business is, and it's so comforting to hear that you're not siloed, are really asking each other those questions, that's just amazing. All right, Jennifer, we want to learn a little bit more about you. Then we're going to get into or close it up with some stereotypical interview questions. So we're going to rapid fire some questions at you right now. Tyler, take us off.
All right, Jennifer Lake. Well, I was thinking, it's bottom of the ninth. We're at Jacobs Field, now Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio. You can hear the fans from the flats. The manager calls you in to close this game out, the closer. What music are you running out of that bullpen to save the day?
Oh, definitely Queen. I would say definitely We Will Rock You. Something about hearing the boom clap, like definitely.
I can see that. I can see that. All right. Well, what's if you could do one thing, pick up one skill overnight, become an expert next day, what would that one skill be?
I would learn ASL overnight. The finger dexterity doesn't always process well for me. So I would love to just wake up and be able to sign.
Okay.
Well, if someone popped about $200 trillion in your lap tomorrow, Jennifer, and you couldn't spend a penny on it, what would you put it towards?
I would put it towards other communities starting their own systems integration projects. So where all the human service organizations come together and work in one consolidated way for integrated service delivery.
That's amazing. I know my friend Dina Johnson is looking to do just that at MCFC. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, so you just finished a big meal. It's your birthday. The waiter's bringing out your favorite dessert of all time. What is that dessert on that plate with a candle on it?
It is a Pillsbury vanilla funfetti cake with funfetti sprinkles on it. Ever since I was a kid, go-to favorite dessert. I mean, I like a mean torte, raspberry torte with chocolate. But at the end of the day, I'll take a funfetti vanilla cake with vanilla icing any day.
I am right there with you all day. You can ask my mom what I've requested for the last 31 years of my life. Funfetti cake with vanilla ice cream or vanilla frosting. Okay. All right. Tyler, what else you got?
All right. Well, I think it's time for time to get serious, Kevin.
It is time to get serious. Jennifer's very interested in working for us, I know.
Yeah. So let me get in serious mode here. And, so Jennifer, will you just tell me about one time you were stressed out or in a stressful situation and tell me how you got out of that?
Absolutely. So we all face stress at work and, the pandemic was incredibly stressful. So from my perspective, it was about every morning staying focused on the key items that needed to be done that day, and understanding that I needed to allow time in my schedule for those unplanned things to pop up. And then even though I was maybe only working from home, still taking kind of 5-10 minutes at the end of the night to really focus on the next day.
Giving us a lot to think about. Jennifer, I got one more for you before we offer this incredible opportunity to you to come and work for us here at Timeout for Leaders. If you could be remembered for just one thing over your entire life, or maybe at your time here with Timeout with Leaders, what would that one thing be?
It would be for helping people see their full potential and really believe they can achieve it.
Well, we can't pay you much, Jennifer, but the job is yours.
Excellent.
Well, we thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. Tyler and I, just two genuinely curious guys that are really interested in learning about passionate leaders like yourself, learning your story, your journey, just so we all can kind of take that opportunity to self-reflect, like you said, find our strengths. What is our passion projects? What moves the needle for us, ourselves first before we try to go and help anybody else. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for being a guest on today's show. I know I've really enjoyed my time. Again, I have probably 5 or 6 different pages of notes of all the great quotes that we have from you. So Thank you very, very much.
It was truly my pleasure. This was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciated the opportunity and loved talking with you. I can't believe how fast this went.